Hey kids, I just survived the first of 4 60-hour work weeks, and all it cost me was the ability to move my left knee without hurting. So, Jinga this week. Yeah, I actually felt like I had enough to talk about to actually recap this one instead of, waiting for a few more to go by. As it's pretty much the consequences of the last several episodes finally building up upon themselves. Jinga Mikage knows something is wrong, and as the episode shows, he hasn't exactly gotten rid of horror Jinga in his subconscious, merely suppressed it back to being at the background of his being. So he takes Fusa and Toma to a village which specializes and takes in the children of Makai knights and priests who have the potential to then train themselves into becoming knights and priests. A bit more specialized and long-term that version of a clandestine community than we have seen before, though honestly from what we'd seen of Rian's training and Rekka and I'm forgetting the first one's name, the one who was Koga's childhood friend, Jabi. Yeah, Jabi was also in one of these things. So it's definitely consistent with lore for them to exist, and for Jinga, with the danger of Jinga emerging from within Jinga's essence to... God, that is so confusing to keep track of. But yeah, to keep the potential danger of his horror self from his brother, he's intending to leave him there so he can train to become the Makai Knight Toma always wanted. Toma training to become the knight Toma always wanted. I want to clarify that. Help him achieve his dream without potentially putting him in danger from whatever is going wrong with him. He also consults with the monks and priests that are there to possibly get an idea of what might have happened to his father, as one of them was one of his father's friends. And the best they can figure is he got stabbed by a soul metal dagger that had the essence of a horror sealed within them. As well, we have had that happen before. This goes back to Chapter of the Black Wolf, when one of the horror seal shards that Koga in that series was turning the horror essence into for disposal back into the Makai realm. Yeah, when one of those got away from them and was stabbed into a normal human, it turned them into a horror. So this is fully consistent with lore and has been seen before. So we figure that it has to be someone that orchestrated all of these events, so the horror Jinga would awaken in Jinga Mikage. And of course, the types of doubt that he would need to have for a horror to take be born in presence within his soul would of course come from having someone so close to him be turned into a horror. Again, we see that happen from what happened... I phrased that wrongly. We saw that, or at least an echo of that, with what happened to Toma as well. So this all makes sense to me. And this also connects back to Amelie suddenly being there, as her potentially being the one that set this all up, or at least that's what Jinga Mikage thinks, as otherwise Amelie being here out of nowhere is very off. And it can, it syncs well with my theory that Amelie is behind Jinga's wake-ups, with her using her conjured butterflies as the original trigger, as I caught that detail a few episodes ago when he killed... I'm forgetting the Makai Knight trainee's name that was with the other guy, and I still don't have the name of the other guy, so yeah, whoops. I'm terrible with names, if you haven't caught on from me doing these vlogs about the Toku series for years. So, while he's doing that, Fusa, though she has kept the secret of Jinga's dualities because she wants to believe in him, has nonetheless taken this chance to have a bit of precaution against the other Jinga as she sees it. As, well, there are spells to detect whether someone is who they say they are. So even if it's the same body, if he's changing personalities on her, then he should be able rephrase, then she should be able to distinguish between them, whether it's just Jinga acting oddly or if it's actually the horror Jinga emerging within him. And if that's the case, then, well, there are steps that need to be taken from there, as I can't remember if in the Garo franchise, I'm excluding the anime because the anime have so many lore contradictions, I'm not even going to bother there, where a horror has remained entirely dormant within its host. I mean, there are times when horrors let the host take over because they are so malevolent in themselves that they only need to like pitch hit in the back seat if they need to, or the will of the horror itself is so suppressed by the host that like I keep going back to the guy who played Barai in Yamiro Trasamono. Before he did that, he did a great standalone episode with opposite race Suzumura where he played a time-displaced samurai. I'm forgetting that character's name off the top of my head, but when he was infested with the horror's essence, he suppressed its willpower with his own so he could use the horror's own abilities to fight Zero on a closer to even level. And it was actually very impressive, his ability to do that. And so I'm thinking that's the closest that we have to what what we're seeing with Jinga in this series, especially, well, obviously we haven't seen it before because I don't think there would have been a horror reincarnated into a human before in this series, as otherwise that would just make, Jinga's existence kind of mundane for them to be retreading old ground like that. Still, I see the lore consistencies for how this could happen, and this just being a further expression of that, because and it goes back to the Thing theory, and I'm talking the John Carpenter's The Thing movie, where a intelligent predator who preys and consumes and makes like itself other living organic beings using the disguise of another being, it would be foolish to have their host body in the driver's seat entirely, but if they're slowly encroaching on them from within, they learn how to act like their host, and thus they can infiltrate all the better. Of course, the usual horror, not jolliness, nonchalance, the general positive yet creepy vibe, I keep rephrasing myself, but it seems appropriate to do so, that he gives off is definitely the biggest tell between the two, and I'm amazed that he's not quite getting it, but I guess that's just horror nature in and of itself, that they don't know when to stop so much. But yeah, I totally get the Predator analogy they're going with here, in that he's slowly laying the bait with his host body on the wiser, kind of acting like a parasite that can momentarily flip nerves when the host isn't paying attention. And that kind of is how this all proceeds, with him haunting Jinga Mikage whenever he looks in mirrors now. And this Fusa's little spell now will be able to detect him, hopefully, when he shows up. Of course, this is assuming that the whole magic flame igniter thing won't work on him. But with Jinga trying to off Toma from his, not so much his responsibilities, but from the court of danger being in his presence would inevitably be, well, Toma doesn't take it well. Obviously, Jinga's not sharing the idea that he could potentially be possessed by a horror or being negatively influenced by one with the power he holds, but Jinga wants him out of there just for his safety, and Toma doesn't want to leave. And so Toma gets the idea of fighting the strongest boy at the camp to show that he might not be a Makai Knight yet, but he's strong enough to be able to protect himself. And Toma loses hard, but I think from how they wrap the bit of that around about the whole fight, is it's showing the will and tenacity to not give up that Jinga needs in his life to keep him grounded, and also showcase that Toma definitely needs more training, for one thing, if he's ever to survive in anything, because, yeah, he just gets his ass handed to him, but also that if worst comes to worst, that Toma will be able to do what's necessary, or at least Jinga. I think that's Jinga's thought process there, as at the end of the episode, Jinga just, like, backslides on leaving him there and decides to have them continue traveling together as he trains him up. Though this does not end well for the boy that Toma challenged, or his father, as the horror Jinga wakes up and uses them as, well, I'd say food, but Jinga doesn't actually eat them. He just slaughters the both of them. So, is this born out of, at least this horror Jinga's emergence, is this born out of Jinga Mikage's own subconscious disdain of what they did to Toma, and thus horror Jinga is acting on that same impulse that the other horror of the series are, to protect theirs and their own? Or is this just the horror Jinga using a convenient target to spread some of his own malevolence? And I honestly feel that could go either way, as, well, there are signs of it going both ways, and also the way Jinga has hesitated to tell off the horror-possessed victims of this series in how their actions are wrong might be because internally he might not think they are so wrong, but it's still his duty to stop them as a Mikage Knight. This would actually explain some of his hesitation with it still striking a chord in him, in that with his father's turning into a horror and the subsequent having to slay him, it might be an expression of this following with all of these moments of hesitation and horror his own actions. It's like, does he feel that might be possible now when one of the most saintly people in his life turned out to be just like them with how he was corrupted? Granted, again, in this episode, they say that he was forcibly corrupted by that dagger stabbing him, but the idea nonetheless seems to be more coalescing into a grander whole as the narrative themes are actually taking over a bit better now. It's sad that it's taken over half the series, as this is episode 7 out of 12, plus the episode 0 promo bit, but it's like, I'm expecting them to start moving into the endgame scenario in the next episode or so, because they gotta wrap the series. I doubt they're going to do a Kami no Kiba Jinga Season 1 and a Kami no Kiba Jinga Season 2. That's simply not how Garo really works. You wrap a season, you wrap an ongoing storyline. So, they have to have a concrete ending. That's how they've always worked, and it would be nice to see something different, but with how much the Garo series have been cut back in production time, I'm not expecting that to be what results from this. So yeah, as usual with Garo, I'm curious to how they're going with this, as Garo is, as a franchise, is surprisingly harder for me to read. Or at least in this case, I'm not certain what they're doing with it, because, well, not enough focus on the main story arc. This is honestly the most focused of the main... This is the episode with the most focus on the main story arc so far, especially since it's a character piece. So I kind of feel like it's the best episode so far, even though it's focused on a character that doesn't really need to exist in the story when you really think of it, and yet is important to Jinga's character and helps ground him as opposed to him being an only child. Yeah, I think that works. Like I said in the opening bit of this, I'm working 60-hour weeks, so I'm trying to get something up in December for scripted review stuff that was done months ago. You know, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Episodes on the Dome arc, but I'm still waiting for my copyright strike to be expired before that happens, so who knows, I'll hopefully have those up in another week or two. Around, obviously, all the other stuff I am doing and having to work through. That's all I got. Oh, Still haven't watched more of Rube. As far as I know, the fansub group that's translating it hasn't posted more episodes, so yeah, that's still stalled for me. So again, that's for real this time all I have. I will see you all next week.